There's nothing that could go wrong for either player. And remember, this is round robin play. There doesn't necessarily need to be players doing this well. They've distanced themselves this weekend, and then in many cases for Paulo, just from everybody else as well, on 28 points at this point against the best players in the world. But Brad's going to kick things off with Cauldron Familiar. Gives us a really cool opportunity here, Cedric, to put ourselves in Brad Nelson's shoes and know the information that he has, but none of the rest. And that's something I actually really don't mind it when this happens every once in a while. Generally it's better to see
that, all right, my opponent has access to a Bone Crusher Giant as soon as the next turn, because Stomp is resolved. It took care of that copy of Priest of Forgotten Gods. So Brad could have played Dreadhorde Butcher on turn number 2, elected to go with Priest. I think for pretty obvious reasons in this match, is Brad is having to play right now. So we get to really step into Brad's shoes here and see what his thought process is going to be, and perhaps what our thought process would be if we were him in a very similar situation.
And we see a Bone Crusher Giant. Now it's going to be a Midnight Reaper, though, for Nelson. But here the Bone Crusher Giant keeping it at bay. And speaking of
we're seeing a block, that is kind of showing that, because we'll just go upstairs, right? Because 2 damage upstairs brings Paulo down to 14. The Bone Crusher Giant is presumably wearing the Embercleave, so then that's 10 damage, and then you've got the other 4 from the Midnight Reaper and the Cauldron Familiar. So
interesting stuff here. And we see Voltaic Brawler. This is one of the additions that Paulo's running in the deck. The versions that we've seen thus Battlefield. So
obviously it's found a home here in Paulo's build of this Gruul deck. Some players are playing it this weekend, others are not. Again, it's just how it works. All right, I want to, if I may, really quickly here, we're going to see a company. Not the worst company I've ever seen, but I want to give a quick shout out to Dr_Unks in Twitch chat for letting me know very much, because I'm trying to work. No way he doesn't have it on one of my windows open. No, I shut him off once I came into this call.
Powerful Embercleave is. Brad's at 19 and still has to fear
it cheesed out by you taking the thing. That's the assumption that I'm working under.
Our Voltaic Brawler is set to trade off here with a Midnight Reaper. And the Goat is chump blocking, I believe, Scavenging Ooze. And then the Burning Tree Emissary is actually set to get in cleanly here. And there we go. Voltaic Brawler's going to pick up the big sword, run over the Midnight Reaper, crash in for some damage. And we're going to see 7 more damage get through here on Brad Nelson before this combat step is up. Serious pressure now. He's going to have to find a way to get out of this mess. Not sure if his deck Mayhem Devil around.
I mean, doesn't Paulo just die now? Am I wrong? Don't you just claim the first one with the Voltaic Brawler? That's 10, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Butcher is 14. Sacrifice the Butcher to the Woe Strider. Ding you for 2 more, so that should be 16 flat. And even more proof I'm not watching the Browns game.
That's right. I was just going to say, we got to do combat math with Cedric in real time with unknown information. And boom. 16,
that's 16 through the
16. Wow. Incredible backcrack here from Brad Nelson. And Paulo Vitor is going to be kicking himself here as this did not go the way he planned. Thought he was the aggressor, but it turns out Brad was. Boom. Huge combat step. Gets in for 16. Play it. Somebody named Reader Rabbit said that Cedric was
firstborn. I believe it could have been, I think, a Mayhem Devil. And Paulo may have just had to go for it because he's got all lands and nothing going on. And the longer that Paulo plays a game against the Sacrifice deck, the worse it is, right? Because they're going to find Witch's Oven. They're going to find Mayhem Devil. They're going to find the elements that Paulo's deck can never overcome. So it may have looked bad in quotes, but, what if Paulo's hand is just a bunch of crappy Llanowar or something, right? He's just going to lose the game. So I imagine that risk was calculated appropriately, given that, I don't know, he's the world champion.
Right. Don't forget, there's Burning Tree Emissary hitting the battlefield on 2. Into another Burning Tree. What else can he do? And a Voltaic Brawler. Boom. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 effective power on the board here on turn 2 from Paulo Vitor Damarosa. And Brad's going to have his hands full here, no doubt about it.
Fun times at the stomping ground here with Paulo Vitor. Now,
Yeah, this is kind of funny. So you see the Voltaic Brawler get stolen, and Paulo has to be thinking, come on, you have a witch's oven, right? I just know there's the witch's oven as it goes on the stack and sacrifices the Brawler. So it gets in for 3, basically turns the Claim the Firstborn into a removal spell there, and now we see both Burning Tree Emissaries hit the red zone.
Now, does Paulo have a third land and a follow-up? Well, there's a third land. That answers question 1. No follow-up, however. So now Brad, whose draw is not all that great. This deck has a bevy of 3, so has some interaction and things that are cheaper. All he can do is pass the turn, Gigantha to hand. He's going to, presumably, create a food token with the Goose. Or do this instead. Excuse me.
So what are you thinking that Paulo might have if you're in Brad's seat right now? He plays a land on turn 3, does nothing. Then on the series, no land drop. Most of his cards, they're not those. If it was an Embercleave, he had a land, he would play the land so that he could get the cleave on the battlefield potentially. That's not it. What is going on here?
I mean, okay.
Cedric's process of an elimination right now as it stands.
Yeah, okay, so Braid, okay, so a Braid, all right, that sacrifice that to which goes off in. Scavenging Ooze is great in creature matchups like this, so getting them off the battlefield matters, and now here's this. So the one thing about Paulo's build of this deck, he doesn't have land number 4, he's got 2 Collected Company in his hand, but no, he only plays 1 Collected Company, so I don't really know, and as things currently stand, Paulo's draws for Gruul aggro. Now, this is a step in the right direction.
Okay, Quest B hits the battlefield. That's the kind of big hitter he needed.
And don't ignore that land. That was really see much reason in holding it back.
Well,
actually, never mind. There's a cat.
Yep, never mind. Right. Yeah.
Yep. Thank you. I apologize. I forgot that was down there.
Yeah. So the cat will jump in front of a burning tree, but even if the Landwehr Elves came in, the Goose would just block it. And we're going to see some Witch's Oven looping happening here, but this is still a significant amount of damage, and Paulo is in that range where,
I feel like Collected Company is the highest upside, but we know this deck only has 25 creatures, and here we go. If you knew you were only going to hit 1 creature, and yes, it does bring an 0-1 along with it, but if you knew you were only going to hit 1 creature, you might be better served to just have the 5/5.
These 2 things, and we've seen 1 a lot.
So now, let's pause.
That there could be a possible because you lose to it no matter what. So you just go, okay, well, I guess I don't have to worry about it. Yeah. Let's see if Paulo believes enough in the cleave to have drawn 1 off the top of the library, as it would almost certainly spell doom here for Brad.
Embercleave has this way of making things very simple.
It does. It's like, ooh, I can play around it. And then you go, no, I can't. I just have to pretend like they don't have it. And then they always have it. Okay, Cauldron Familiar shenanigans. Woe Strider to start scrying.
Yeah, so Woe Strider's, that's well, how good is that? I think,
is
okay.
Good
on top.
Is it? Wow.
Brad says it is.
Oh, it must just be insurance for Embercleave. Because if Brad feels that he can maintain this board state, then Embercleave doesn't really answer that. So is it good enough? But it turns out Brad wants the insurance policy here. So a Braid goes into hand. And then I guess we'll just see Gigantha.
Important, but scrying, it can jump block, blah, blah, blah. So actually going to go this route.
Okay. Yeah, of course, we have to also see there's a Ramanop Ruins up there for Paulo Vitor. Mm-hmm. And not only that, but the Hashep Oasis is a desert. So
yeah, I actually do wonder if you do any activations, if we want to use it at all, because it's also worth noting that Hashep Oasis, you have to activate at sorcery speed. You can't do it inside of combat, so you got to do it straight up right now. So 7/7.
And that shows us what Paulo thinks about, okay, this one will get it through and effectively force a chump block with the Woe Strider. And then the Gigantha that I know you have changed that math quite strongly, as he can use it to finish off the Questing Beast this turn. And we'll see if he chooses to do so. It would cost him a food.
Nom nom.
Yeah. You don't want to spend your food lightly. But it does seem to be a decent situation. If Brad uses a Braid to finish off Questy B and then plays Gigantha, he'll have the biggest thing on the battlefield. he'll be facing down a 2-2 and a 1-1. It's got to be a decent spot for him. He's also at 9. And there we go. He's going to do it.
Okay.
He fires off the Abrade. Down goes Questing Beast. A second copy of Witch's Oven will allow him to continue that loop.
Yep.
These are certainly not redundant. They get
another
multiples.
oven. Another.
There's a Gruul Spellbreaker, but that looks too little too late here for Paulo. As Brad Nelson is in a decent position on board, not under immediate threat of death. And that feels pretty good.
Well, we'll see what Brad's draw step is. We'll see what Brad's draw step is here in a second. Paulo needs it to be quite bad, and Paulo needs to draw Embercleave the next turn. And yeah, it's got to be Embercleave right now for Paulo.
To town, because with if there's a combat step, there is the land also gives him enough to have to respect the cleave.
And then I want to be able to see everyone's players' hands and the hand cams. Think about how less fun this is if we just know Paulo has an Embercleave. This is awesome. This is actually fun. It's like, okay, he actually does have Embercleave.
Oh, this is just great. Yeah, but this was not lethal either way. Again, the cat is going to put Brad above 10. Now, as it stands, he did choose to block, so he'll soak up 5 of the damage with Jegantha getting thrown under the bus. And the cleave, though, is it a game changer enough here? Because if you look, Brad does not have an answer for it currently. Also, we could see Hashep Oasis making that thing bigger. You know, the combination of double strike, trample, and +3/+3 with an additional +1/+1 on the Spellbreaker could be enough to really pressure Brad's life total even through.
Again, having a fantastic weekend with his take on Gruul. But Paulo said, you know what? I want all 4. I want all 4 of this bust. Ooh.
Hello.
Well, we've done this before, haven't we? How do we do this time?
Let's see.
That's a lot better. Okay.
All right. Now he hit a Woe Strider and a Mayhem Devil here. Oh, man.
Yeah. Yeah, and it might be GG time. Now, Brad is moving now. We see this sometimes where the player's just like, oh, I'm going. It's time for all the triggers in the world.
That's right. He's got it now. He can simply clear away the blockers and get the job done. He even can activate Priest of Forgotten Gods after that BTE is off the battlefield and take out the last remaining creature. And what a collected company there for Brad Nelson. That's much better than what he saw before. You know, I think he was thinking, I'd like to hit perhaps one of my sideboard Reclamation Sages to kill the Embercleave and just make this a lot easier. But as it turns out, it's an easy victory there with what he hit and a win for Brad the Bard Nelson, defeating Paulo Vitor Rosa